According to Minister of Budget and Planning Udoma, Nigeria's 2019 budget size has been proposed to increase to 10.3 trillion naira from the initial 8.83 trillion naira as Buhari's administration adds new higher minimum wage and pension liabilities. Hence, the deficit size of budget 2019 goes higher and other parameters adjusted to accommodate new salary and pensions. Finance Ministry, Central Bank, Federal Inland Revenue Service, Debt Management Office chiefs, amongst others, met on Tuesday to represent federal government's increased budget proposal. I have Gospel Obele, CEO Streetnomics, to speak with me on this. Thank you for joining me, Gospel.
Thank you for having me, Irene.
If this budget is increased to 10.3 trillion naira as proposed at the House of Assembly on Tuesday, what would be the adverse effects on our economy? Because looking at it, this is a non-revenue generating recurrent expenditure for the government. Speaking of the fact that the reason for the increase now is because of, the pension and the new salary liabilities.
All right, so it poses quite some interesting conversation on the economy generally.
I agree with you.
On the benefit side, you can say that workers have their incomes raised to at least 30,000 naira, which makes it a minimum wage. But if you look at it more critically on the cost side, the implications are higher, because that would mean that you have to start thinking of more ways to fund the recurrent expenditure, which is on the increase, relatively about 70 to 30% when compared to the capital expenditure. Then secondly, being the fact that the minimum wage is long overdue, and following the news and all that has been happening recently, they've been on this case for about 5 years now. So if you take the prices of 2014 and 2019, the cost of living and all that has generally increased. So in terms of the quality or the purchasing power of disposable income of these workers, it's still largely insignificant per se, but it goes a long way in the sense to empower workers, do what they can do, feed their families and all. If you look at it from another cost perspective, again, you'll say that before the approval of this minimum wage, lots and lots of workers have lived on what we call a negative disposable income, where people have had to borrow money to fund to eat, to pay for school fees and all that. So
basic necessities.
Yes. So yes, I agree that the 30,000 naira may lift them off a bit, but the core reasons or the root causes or the root implications of these things are still there. So it's questions around how would the government begin to fund these things, and for states that are not so commercially viable, it's a higher level of stress for them, because even as at 18,000 minimum wage, they still owe close to 6 to 9 months salary, and then you find cases where the federal government has to come to bail out states. So it's going to be more complications as we head on, into the year and into the execution of this new initiative. So
are you suggesting that it's not a sustainable, action to take by the government?
No, it's a necessary action to take by the government.
But how sustainable is it?
Yes, so the questions around sustainability, and it's called on funding. How do you fund that recurrent expenditure? But sustainability in the sense, you have to probably think of ways we can generate fund or revenue for the government, or better put, ways these states can become commercially viable. So we are literally nearing a case of emergency where the needful has to be done. But if you look at it also from the cost side, it seems like a threat on the revenue side for government. So a lot of things have to be done to kickstart that revenue end so that we can meet the necessities. Because 30,000 naira minimum wage is actually necessary for the average worker. All
right, so you are talking about an increased, revenue generating scheme. We know that the FIRS is also doing a lot to broaden its tax net. But when you look at that as well, an overstretch of this tax net, what implications would it have on companies itself, and would it also affect their ability to employ more individuals into their company? Because if they have to pay a lot more on taxes, it may weigh on other areas of each company.
Yes, the conversations around increasing the tax net has been quite interesting, because first of all, there are issues on the effectiveness of tax collection. So even the ones that are currently paying taxes, have you effectively collected these taxes from them? Secondly, have you created the right incentives to allow for tax compliance? So, and thirdly, have you properly cut down, the cost of governance? So if you think of systems where taxes work as a fiscal tool, to revive the economy and to empower for growth and development inclusively, you find out that even their cost of governance is quite low. But over here you have a high cost of governance, and yet you want to increase the tax net. So there are no reasons to believe, by those who will be paying these taxes on why they should comply. So you want to think of making the most of what you have at the moment, first of all, because we're used to churning out policies that seem like patches to the problem. You don't really solve the problem, but they patch the problem. So you have a core problem at hand where people don't find reasons to believe they should pay taxes. No accountability system in place, and the cost of governance is very high. And then you can't see your money at work really in most states of the federation. So why should I pay taxes? So we need to begin to think of creative ways to encourage people to pay taxes. And then at the end of the day, for me, I don't necessarily think it's about widening the tax net or increasing the tax base, but it's more for me around cutting down the cost of governance, improving or creating incentives for compliance, and then the effectiveness of tax collection.
Thank you so much. We're out of time. I wish you had more time to talk about this, but I hope we just have to wait and see how this ends at the end of the day. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.